everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Out and About AF. I'm your host, Gabe, and today I have a very special guest. I have Des with me. Des, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here. I think it's your lunch break right now.
Yeah.
So we'll get through this pretty quickly. But yeah, again, just thanks for being here. Definitely appreciate it. Des is part of my community, Sober Motivation. We've known each other for what, maybe about a year? I guess
Well,
close to a year. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and just a quick story before we dive in. And I said this one time in a meeting, but I don't think she knew of it because I think it surprised her. She actually went on a cruise before I did, and she went fully sober. She said she had the time of her life, took pictures, all that great stuff. And for myself, I was nervous about going in to this, but I saw that she could do it. So that definitely gave me the motivation to, say that I could actually do this as well. Just want to say thank you, Des, for all that. So yeah, let's just go ahead and dive in and just, yeah, tell me a little bit about your alcohol-free journey.
My name is Des, and I'm 27, and I'm from a really small town in North Carolina. I grew up in a home with my mother and my stepfather, and I have three younger brothers. My stepfather was an addict and alcoholic. My mother struggled really bad with mental health. And so it was really in my life before I ever knew like alcoholism, things of that nature was prevalent before I even could understand what it was. And so in a really like short way, like I just grew up fast. I grew up in the church as, kind of checking boxes or fitting in a box as I like to reflect on it these days. And I did everything I was supposed to do, probably more than I was supposed to do. Again, I was the oldest and the only girl. So I pretty much helped my mom raise my brothers. She was married for the first 10 years of my life, but it was one of those relationships where despite being married, she was still very much a single parent. And so like his presence never was anything helpful. It was always quite the opposite. It was always like I was picking up the pieces that he left. So very early on, I learned about responsibility and I just always felt like I had to take on more than I should have. I think the first time I ever truly remember alcohol was when my mom and my stepfather got into an argument, and we were in this two-bedroom apartment. It was four kids and two adults, so six people in a two-bedroom apartment. And he had this like big blue cup, and that's what he always drank out of. And they got into an argument, and I remember him throwing it onto my mom, and it got onto like this pitcher. I don't even remember what the pitcher was, but I say that to like say that I remember the smell. Like I can distinguish that it didn't smell like Kool-Aid or water. Like it was beer. And I just remember that kind of sticking out to me. But like that was just normal. That was normal activity in my like elementary school days. Another thing since I brought up the apartment was, I mentioned that my mom struggled really bad with mental health. And I remember one day they had gotten to an argument. I was in second grade. So I was like 7, 8 years old. And we were sitting in our kitchen and my mom and I were folding like bath towels. And I remember seeing a pill bottle, and I remember her like literally like turning up the pill bottle, and I didn't know what was going on. And I asked, she told me, she was like, if I fall asleep and you can't wake me up, call your grandma and then call 911. And I'm just like, okay. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. She didn't wake up when I was trying to wake her up, and I had to call. And so I guess like I went into that because it was just like really like my whole entire life has just been so much like there's just so much chaos there. Very early on, like I said, like just before I could even remember or like point it out as there was like substance abuse, mental health, alcohol. I mean, it was just normal, right? It was a normal part of my life growing up.
Yeah, that's so like, I mean, wow,
Yeah.
that is crazy. And like, so I guess when did you like, when you first started, did you feel like this was just, normal? Like, it was okay to drink, it was okay to do drugs, or, like, how was that? How did you navigate that?
Um, I didn't. That's why I'm here. But on a serious note, like literally the first time I ever drank, you know, I was in high school. I didn't drink. It was early, but I was like 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there. And I was staying the night with my friend and it was me and my friend and another friend. And my friend's mom opened up this huge cabinet and was like, "Here you go, have fun." And so that's how it started. And it was just like a snowball effect. Like it was, I felt comfortable drinking. And, you've probably heard, but like literally that night we drank and we drank so much that I literally woke up in the bathroom floor. And my first thought wasn't like, what happened last night? It was, can we do that again?
Wow. So
Yeah.
you just dove straight in.
Pretty much. I mean, it didn't turn into an everyday thing right off, but I mean, yeah, it was literally like the first time I ever drank. I can't tell you what happened. I can just tell you where I woke up and tell you that I did it again the next night. That's all I really remember.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And again, how old were you again?
I was like, I'd say, yeah, I was high school, like 15, somewhere in there. I wasn't working yet. So like 15. Yeah.
Okay. And so you said that your mom was divorced, I guess you said at the first 10 years. So how was that like kind of navigating? Like you said, you were taking a lot. So you were taking a lot on as you were growing up.
Like, even though once they were divorced, I jumped even more so into that responsibility. It was such a relief because, that time in my life, I just remember, just a lot of things like watching my mom go through it. And unfortunately, us too, right? Because there's kids in the home. So we were going through the same thing she were. Just, I think where I was the oldest, I seen more of it. Like, you know, I found out that Santa wasn't real because they got into it and I woke up to my mom crying on Christmas Eve and I walked down the stairs and I see all of my gifts for Christmas laid out and I'm like, what's going on? And so then, you know what I mean? So it's just like the natural timeline of a child's life, I just felt like was very cut short for me. And so at that point, it was probably like the first taste of somewhat a calmer life. I got to see a side of my mom that I don't get it wrong. She was still very stressed out because she was still managing things by herself and going through heartbreak. And, I think other things, like I've kind of mentioned, her mental health was definitely a problem still, but it was calmer. For once in my life, it was a little bit calm.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah. I mean, because I just think about, some people that I know in my family who are kind of similar. And it's just, it's hard to see, you know, it kind of goes back to, some people that I know. I don't want to call them out here, it's not that kind of podcast. But, I just know how hard it was. So definitely can, relate on some level to that of like, I've seen it too. And, just how to see where you're at now compared to what I was hearing just now. I mean, that's total like badass.
Oh, thanks.
So you said it didn't start out, it wasn't a constant thing. When did it kind of start escalating?
So pretty much like through high school, it was just, we got through the week, let's party. I was a great student. I mean, excelled in school. Never got in trouble. None of those like red flags were there. I was just very on top of it. And I think it's kind of important to note that like that's where my self-worth was. Like that's where I found that is because the only thing I felt like I could do right was like, I could read the most books in a school year out of my whole class. I could score the highest and make straight A's. Like, I think I never really got the chance to like do sports or do other things. Like that's where my praise came, if that makes sense. And that's what I strived for was to be like the smartest. So, high school was, I'd say normal drinking. And then I got a full ride to Salem College down here in North Carolina, all girls school. And that's where it started. I think that, like, looking back now, I think it was school had been so easy for me up to that point, and it wasn't so easy anymore. You know, I shared a room with someone who didn't drink, she didn't smoke, she didn't do anything, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, so much that I was willing to, skip class and sleep through class and things like that just to make sure that I could drink or smoke and I didn't miss out. And at that point, within a few weeks of me being out of my mom's home and on campus, it was every day. I mean, literally, very quickly it turned into like, this is my life now. This is who I am. I drink, I smoke, I party, I have fun.
Yeah. No, I totally I think I don't think I don't wanna say high school's easy and everybody just flies right through it, but it is a little bit easier and it is to get, especially like if that's where this positive, positivity is coming from, you wanna gravitate towards that. And I was the same way. I tried to do everything I could in school. I joined so many extracurriculars. I wasn't the smartest person, I'll be honest, but, so it's just I try to do you were like book smart. I like to do a lot of activities, but just still, because we got a lot of good feedback from it, right? And when I got to college, it wasn't like that. Like it wasn't just me flying through and, it was stressful. And drinking, yeah, it was the thing to do. Like, I mean, I remember one time it was like maybe 11 o'clock during the day. Three of us had failed a test and we knew we bombed it. There is a bar right across the street. Actually, all of our bars were right across the street. We spent the whole day there just drinking, and we used any excuse to drink. We had different days of the week of what we called it, like Margarita Monday, Tequila Tuesday, Wasted Wednesday. Like, I mean, yeah, looking back on it now, I'm just like, man, I was stupid. But like, it was the thing to do because it was normal. Everybody was doing it. Now, did you ever think at any point you're like, "Hey, maybe I gotta calm down," or
Not at that point. So, and I should have. I didn't make it very long, before I got caught on campus with marijuana, and they gave me a warning. And then within a week or so later, I got caught again. And so I got expelled. And this was around Christmas time. And so I came home from Christmas break and didn't tell my mom. Like, I was not going back, but she had no clue. And she found out because they sent a letter in the mail and never even read it because at that point I just didn't care. I came home, I got a job, and continued to party with my friends that I grew up with my whole life. I was always around, not like that much older, but like I was a freshman and I was hanging out with like juniors and seniors. So a lot of my friends were still in that party stage too. And, they had either started working and drinking. And so we just partied. Like we clocked in, clocked out, partied, go home, sleep, or eat, most of the time eat, wake up and do it all again. And so it's just like this cycle of I was still being responsible and maintaining a job and, I had responsibilities at home. I came back home, I was helping pay bills. My younger brothers were high school age. So, I was taking them to school or helping them like with whatever they needed, but I was still partying hard.
yeah, I mean, especially going back to a small town,
Yeah.
you know, I grew up in a small town in Odessa, Texas, and, that's pretty much all you did. That's what everybody did there, and it's just so it's, like, easy to fall into that cycle. So I guess moving forward, when did it escalate any more from that, or did you just kinda stayed there for a while?
No, so it escalated pretty quickly from there. I ended up meeting someone who I have 2 children with. Um, and literally, like, that was that day forward, I didn't stand a chance. I did, but I didn't think I did. Anyway, long story short, I guess I met him, and I like to let everyone know that the day that I decided that this was my soulmate, I was tripping acid. That's what I wanted to do for my birthday, and that's exactly what happened, and I ended up making big life decisions, and, I've healed to the point where I don't really talk bad about that person and that relationship anymore, but it was another situation in my life where I was trying to be enough. I was trying to stand out and, be the one. I was so sure that I was willing to give my all to this person, but I couldn't. I never like got that back at that point, and that's all that I was searching for that. Like I wanted to like have a person and that person stand by me unconditionally, whether like and not just romantically necessarily, but you know what I mean? I wanted to just be enough. And so it just that's where it got worse. He partied with much more stronger substances, which led me to do the same. It started with like Molly and like LSD and cocaine and pain pills and, things like that, and it just escalated, and I mean, again, it was back to that, "Okay, it's the weekend, let's do this," and then it made me feel so good that I didn't know how to just do it on the weekends anymore.
Hmm.
Like, I was just drowning, and that was the only thing that, like, I felt like kept my head the slightest bit above water.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, was it like kind of drinking during the week and then using on the weekends, or it just kind of became every day?
Honestly, it yeah, I mean, immediately, it wasn't every day,
Hmm.
but really quickly. I mean, none of us in a small town, if you're not moving out and going to find something bigger and better, you're working at like I waited tables for years, or you're working at like a factory or the grocery store. And so it was, very limited. There just wasn't much to do. So that's what we did. We house partied, and I mean, clubs were a special occasion for us because you had to drive so far to get to it. And honestly, anytime I drove to a club, I can't tell you how I got home safe. So it's like it was just safer for us to be at someone's house partying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely waiting tables, I did that for 8 years of waiting tables, bartending, and yeah, it's definitely that's definitely like just like the party job. I mean, because that's all you do. You're stressed out, your other server, staff, they feel the same frustrations you do. And even when I was because I moved to Dallas to be a marketing manager at a restaurant, but I was also bartending there too. And so we would close at midnight and we would just walk down the street to this other bar who gave us the happy hour prices. And I mean, free shots, right when we walked in. So it was definitely, it's just what you do. It's just such a pattern on that. So definitely relate to you on that. And yeah, like I never really got into, the drug, like, I've tried a lot of stuff for sure. I mean, duh. But, I never really got too much into it though. So how did that I mean, how did that get to a point to where I guess I would say, like, did you have a rock bottom, or how did that go with like your family and, raising kids in that environment?
Yeah. It didn't go well. There's many years. So I had my first daughter. I was pregnant on my 21st birthday. And I remember that standing out because it sucked because you're finally legal and, like had the fake ID and all that, but it was different. And so I had my first daughter when I was 21. And like I toned down for a minute. Like I calmed down and because I was so excited to be a mom because I knew this person was going to love me. And I was so excited for that to just have a bond. Like when you're pregnant, you can't even imagine what it's going to be like. And so, for a few months, I really calmed down. But again, I was in a relationship with someone who that's all they did. That's all our friends did. Cause when you're trying to conform and meet someone else's standards, so they give you the love that you're looking for, you kind of lose sight of who you are. And their friends are now my only friends too. So we had the same friend group. And that's all that it was, the drinking, the party, and the drugs. And so it's around me and I picked it back up. Pain pills was my drug of choice for quite a while, and it got, one, very expensive, and two, very hard to find. And so I ended up picking up fentanyl, and it was like unintentional. Like, I didn't necessarily, I'm not going to say if someone had said, "Hey, this is fentanyl. Are you sure you want it?" I wouldn't have said no, but it was like, I tried it and I'm like, "Why is this so strong?" And my friend was like, "Oh, it's fentanyl. It's not a real pill. It's fentanyl." And so, but again, it made me feel so good that that's when I felt like addiction really like grabbed a hold of me. Like, it was literally all day, every day. I couldn't maintain a job at this point. Things happen, like legal issues with just different things like that. And CPS had got involved. And, I was able to kind of grab a hold of myself enough. I really just learned how to hide it. I'm not even going to say I grabbed a hold of myself. I learned how to hide it.
Mhm.
And then I had another child a few years later. There's 3 years-ish in between them. And before I got pregnant with her, my addiction was so bad that during that time, I wasn't even able to quit. So during my pregnancy with her, I continued to use and to drink and to party. And I will say that I was so out of tune with my own body because I was so wrapped up into the lifestyle that I didn't even know that I was pregnant with her until I was 22 weeks. And so then, yeah, I found out I was pregnant, and because my body just felt weird and my belly's growing. Am I growing a beer belly? Like, what's going on? And so I ended up going to the OB and just getting myself checked out, and found out I was pregnant, found out her gender, and that was like the only doctor's appointment. So again, I didn't know how to ask for help. I don't think I wanted help. And I think, like, looking back, like, I knew that if I would have asked for help, so much would have changed. That scared me. Like, I was going to lose. I wanted a family that was different than what I grew up in. And
Mhm.
so I was afraid to do anything that would have like jeopardized that.
Yeah. No, I definitely kind of see like where that you have these kids, in your life and definitely asking for help. I was like, for myself, I almost wanted someone to step in and tell me like, "Hey, you're drinking too much," or, but part of me was like never like I didn't want to quit because I didn't want to lose everything like you were saying. And I got a DUI, and so I had to go to an IOP. And I had, the court told me I had to go to AA. And so I go into AA, and I knew immediately, like I was like just hearing everybody else's stories of like what they're going through, and I'm like, well, I'm not there. Like, I'm not like them. So I can be an alcoholic. But when I like I think that's when the seed was like planted, right? It's just that little, well, maybe you do, or, all that. And, kind of going through it. But like, I even went on my own to an AA meeting, um, like a year before I decided to quit. And I went in and it wasn't the best experience. It was just, I don't know if you've been around, other gays, but they could be a little judgmental. I mean, but I think any space can, right? And it was just some of the things that were said at the time. Again, this was years ago. I've been back since, and it's amazing where it's at now. But I was just like, no, I don't want to. And I blamed it all on them. And now I look back on it and I'm like, I just wasn't ready to give it up. I mean, it's so simple, but it was easy to blame everybody else, but I also wanted someone else to tell me like, "Hey, you need to get back into this." So this all kind of happened pretty quickly after you had your second kid.
Mhm.
How long was it before, things started to change, I guess for the better, like, or was there another instance where you're just like, "Okay, I'm done. I
Yeah,
need help."
for sure. So even like during that time, like, I know you had kind of mentioned family. My family had just like slowly cut me off. The only contact they had was just to like maintain with my children. And there's, a lot of like little details that happen in between with like CPS and jail and all of those things. But really, I think like the important thing is like it was just like a cycle of excuses and blame, and really just like the lack of willingness to admit that I had a problem and I had to fix it and I had to do the work. It was just easier to be like, I'm stuck, I can't. And I honestly don't think I knew how either, but it was really hard to ask and admit. So still in this relationship, and it's off and on at this point, all these crazy things have happened. So this was 2023 and I experienced an overdose. And I think I always tell people this when they ask like what my rock bottom was. My rock bottom literally cost me $5. And, I had I was at this point in my life, my addiction was so bad I was smoking crack cocaine, and ended up uh, overdosing on $5 worth of crack cocaine. It was laced with fentanyl. And long story short, um, I went to the hospital and my mom picked me up. And, she kept saying, like, this is the phone call that I have literally dreaded for my entire life. And I knew that because she always like told me how much she feared that phone call. And so probably about 2 months before I overdosed, she was sending me this link to this place that did like inpatient, outpatient treatment place. And it was brand new in our county, literally 5 minutes up the road from where I was staying with my children's father. And I literally wouldn't even click on the link. Like, wouldn't even open the message. And so we're driving down the road after we've left the hospital, and she's like, "Do you want to just stop by and just see?" And I'm like, "Sure." And in that moment, I didn't even think I was taking myself serious, but I wanted to like ease her mind. And so we walked in there, and a lady named Hope and a man named Gary, and they were both people in recovery, and they ran the place. One was a peer support, one was a certified alcohol and drug counselor, and I felt seen. And it's crazy. It's one of those things where like unless you've lived and the extremities of like alcohol and addiction, you don't understand what it feels like to go unseen for so long in that way. But they did. I mean, they heard me. They never like looked away from me or made me feel like garbage because of the things that I had done or the fact that I was a mom who couldn't get sober during a pregnancy or chose to stay in a relationship that was absolutely toxic and abusive. They were like, okay, like their goal was to like figure out how to like help me navigate and make the decision on what was next. And so that's where it started for me. Like that was my day one. Honestly, I don't think I've ever phrased it in this way, but literally what saved my life that day was finding a connection of someone who had the lived experience that I have. My mom, my grandma, there's so many people that tried to help me, but that was like the first interaction I had with another sober person. Sitting here talking to you right now, like I realized that like in that moment, that was like my first connection. And it's kind of like what changed my life.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, I was as you were saying that, I was thinking like kind of about, mine with Sober Buddy. I downloaded all the podcasts, any sober podcasts, but I never listened to them. I never listened to an episode because I was like, I know once I do, it's gonna just tell me everything about me that I already know, but I'm just denying it. And so finally, I joined Sober Buddy and I joined the struggle bus meeting on Tuesday
Mhm.
night. And like you said, it's just I felt seen. Like I connected almost immediately with those people who I didn't even know. They're complete strangers,
Yeah.
but it made me feel like you said I wasn't alone. I felt because I always thought I was the one trying to moderate or I was always the one trying to do everything not to give up alcohol, and to hear these short stories in such a short time, you know, it was just like the light bulb that went off that was like broken, thrown under the table, like, it wasn't there and it just came back and I was like, wow. And that's just kind of, yeah, like it's great that, and that's why I think like this sharing stories like this and sharing like or these communities that are just willing to help people as they are, no judgment, nothing. Like it's just so powerful and it's so needed in so many areas of everything. So, did you actually go to the treatment? Is that right? Or
So I did an outpatient at that time. I had kind of transitioned, like I mentioned, I stopped doing fentanyl and like pain pills, opiates in February of 2023. The crack cocaine. Because in my head, that was the better option. Don't ask me why, but it was. And so, yeah, I honestly, I just did IOP. I did a 72-hour intensive outpatient treatment. And that's like kind of where it started. I went
Mhm.
3 days a week. And on top of that, another huge motivator was CPS was want to get involved. And that was another big thing is when I met with the worker. So my day one, I also like I went back home to my kid's father and my kids, and it was literally immediately like, mind you, they had given me like this migraine cocktail. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I was just really struggling. Like my body had literally died and come back to life, and I needed rest.
Mhm.
And the only thing that my children's father could think of was like, when are we getting high again? Like, how are we getting high again? And I'm like, time out. Like, I need a minute. And that day was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I called my mom, and me and my kids left. And that was another life changing decision. Something that I never thought I would walk away from is exactly what I needed to start my life over. So it was like day one for everything all over again. And so, yeah, I did outpatient, and I had to follow a case plan. I had to check all the boxes. And I hate to say that, but like for the first time, I was checking boxes that like were for myself. I wasn't, yes, it was a box for like a list of things that I needed to do for a social worker, but they were all things that like really they were for myself, going to treatment, getting a mental health evaluation, going to meetings, getting connected, getting my license back, getting things that allowed me to be me however I chose to be me. As long as I was sober, they didn't care.
Mhm.
And so I did that. I worked my IOP. I stayed connected. I went to therapy, got my children in therapy. I did AA for a while, and also online community. Online community is just where I found a place where I call home, And it's not to say that I don't enjoy AA, because I do. I have some good friends there, but it doesn't compare to the friends that I have in the online spaces. And so, yeah, I just literally took it one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. I remember, so like, yeah, I went Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it was like Monday, I was like, okay, I think it was like 9 to 12, we had class or something like that.
Mhm.
And so it was like I got through that day, and then I went home and took it like an hour at a time. And like I'd get home from class, and there was a 1 o'clock online meeting, and then at 7 o'clock, and then at 10 o'clock, and I listened into every single one of them. Like that, literally, I got through. Like, okay, I got 2 hours before my next meeting, and I'm not gonna get on there and tell them I've relapsed. Like, so I stuck it out, and that's how I'd made it. And somehow I've managed.
Yeah, that's I mean, kind of going back to like you checking off the boxes, I think, for yourself, because
Yes.
I think you took on so much at a young age. It was like, did you really have time for yourself? Did you ever do something for yourself? And the fact that you're doing it for this, but in such a big way, I think that that's really amazing to see. And especially, when this is all you've known, you know, and pulling yourself out of that, I mean, that's pretty amazing. And I always say this, you know, I think anybody who goes into like an online community, or I specifically talk about ours, sober motivation, I always say like everybody in there is doing amazing things, but the women in there, they're a little bit more on top, they're a little bit more badass, because y'all do amazing things. And, it's just, I think I might be biased too, because I have two older sisters. I'm the youngest, and my mom is there. So they've done so much for me. So I always just like commend, any mother. But Yeah. So what is it like? So you've been sober now, what, 3 years?
No,
No.
2 years. So 26 months on July 2nd. So yeah, 26 months, 800 and, hold on, 814 days, but who's counting
Hey,
me?
I mean, we always say a day's a win. So
Yeah.
count all the days, stack them all up. And so how is it now that you're like, what are you doing now?
So right now I am working. So on my 1 year sober, I got a job offer to come and work at the DSS that had taken my kids before. And my social worker actually like presented the job to me. I was already taking a peer support class, but prior to that, I was literally cleaning houses because I just had to do something. And so I did. I took the job. And so I've been here a little over a year. Um, and actually this week marks the first week that they've offered me, like, again, I live in a small county, so it's a peer support job. I've been a certified North Carolina certified peer support specialist for a year, and I'm finally able to like navigate that world and that employment literally a few days in. So hopefully I'll update you in 6 months or so. But yeah, I mean that's what I'm doing. I have full custody of both my children. Literally the best part of every day. The second best part is my fiance, and that's something that I never thought I would say is that I'm an engaged person. And I'll dive into that if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, about 9 months into my sobriety, and this is literally like flip coin, two different scenarios, but I think it's so important. And I appreciate like this space to be able to tell it. I was back in the church. You remember I told you my grandma was very religious. And I'll stop right there to just say I'm not against religion. I've just learned how to differentiate religion and spirituality. That 9 months sober, I was not there yet. And so I was in a relationship with my preacher's son, and he was, I don't know, I'm not even going to tell that story and everything because I really don't know the truth, and it did not work out. And I was just devastated. Like, I thought that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And like, I just didn't understand why, like, once again, I felt like I wasn't enough. And so I took quite some time to just navigate myself again and really dive deep into like my worth and what I want and how to get there. Um, and sure enough, I mean, I ended up, this is so funny. If she listens to this, she'll kill me, but it's fine. So I was still in church after this breakup, and I'm standing in the choir singing. Like, that's how like hardcore church I was, and like nursery and everything. And here walks in my now fiance, and she is, anyway. And I'm just standing up there, and like, mind you, like way back in my college, all girls school, way back in my college days, like that was a kind of sort of a thing. And it just opted into be like, I really just kind of boxed it into this, like, oh, that was just a party stage, that's not who I am, like one of those sins that had to be forgiven. And I'm standing up there and I'm blushing. Literally all we've done is make eye contact and I'm blushing.
Butterflies.
Yeah, I can't stop smiling. I can't even tell you what words are coming out of my mouth, much less going through my head. And after church, we ended up speaking. It's been years. I mean, it's been years. And literally, like, that was the start of like a whole new journey. And it was honestly, I'm very thankful that it wasn't difficult for me. And I think that it wasn't difficult for me because I had kind of dipped into sobriety where I had to learn who I was, and I had to learn how to set boundaries, and I had to learn how to be okay and be selfish in healthy ways. And so, like, really, I just took all those tools and applied it to this. And, there's a lot of things that I could like dive into, but it was like all the things that I was searching for in other areas. I literally didn't even have to look. It was like it just happened. And so, a lot of my story and a lot of the things I had to work on were like my own self worth, my own self-love and things like that. And like once I finally took the time to like really truly work on those, not just like surface level, but I had to dig deep. Everything that I was looking for just like walked into my life. It just wasn't like I thought it was supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
And so, like you and I were talking about earlier, it was like my identity was shaken up completely again. And, I mentioned my grandma, very religious, very church going, very spiritual, very faith based, like the church kicked me out. Let me rephrase that. My grandma kicked me out. She told me, met me at the door and was like, hey, the girls can come to Sunday school, but not you. And this was before I was even like truly ready to be like, hey, like, think I'm gay. Like, it was just like a whole thing. But like that pushed me to be like, you know what? Like, I'm happy. Like, for the first time in my life, I'm with someone who loves me. I'm with someone who respects me. And I'm with someone where I don't have to wonder, like, is this love safe? Is this love real? And it was literally like scary how quickly we got there. And again, like, it was a circle moment because we tried to navigate this years and years ago before we were both ready. And I mean, I tell her to this day now, like, the moment like we hung out, so like at church, we ended up going to lunch after, and that's where the conversation, like, literally we have not spent a day where we didn't talk, another day apart. Like, we've been together every day since then. And over the past like 10 months, like, and I know that's fast. So like, just, this is a safe space and we don't judge, but it just like, it goes to show that like once I really like paid attention to myself and allowed myself to be myself, not, this girl dating the preacher's son because that made my grandma happy. Like, I'll never forget. My grandma literally sat me down and she was like, this is so dramatic, but like, she said this to me. She was like, I can die knowing that you're taken care of now. And just because that was the preacher's son, I was safe, right? And that was the exact, like, it was so far from the truth. It was the opposite. And so, that was a whole nother thing. But I mean, it taught me how to stay true to myself. There's a lot of stigma around drinking and being an addict. And there's a lot of like stigma and shame and like negative connotation around being someone like a gay person, someone who likes people of the same sex, someone who likes multiple sexes, like, you know what I mean? Like, all of those things, like, there's so much like negative talk and stigma around that too. So it was just like another way that I got to stay true to myself and not care what other people thought about me, because for once in my life, I was happy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I I do want to touch on the religion. I grew up Catholic. We lived right across the street from the church, and we were my parents were definitely very involved with the church. I grew up with the church, and just growing up there, and especially in a small town, a conservative town, I can definitely, it's hard to come to realization that you're someone that they don't approve of no matter what you do. And in
Mhm.
terms of being, and for myself, I feel like I knew I was gay in like fourth grade, and it's crazy to see that, how something that is supposed to be so welcoming, it can be a little opposite of that, right? And I definitely, I don't hold against anybody, like I don't hold it against them that they are religious or anything like that. I think as long as people know religion is for them and them only, that's my only thing on it. And I think it's and I and it's I don't consider myself religious. More spiritual, if anything, you know, and I think that's just something that I'm still kind of navigating through all this. And so, but definitely seeing your face light up when you were talking about your fiance and your kids, and beautiful kids, by the way.
Thank you.
But yeah, just seeing all that, I mean, and I think that's what it is. And it doesn't matter what gender they are or, whatever. Once it's right, it's right. It's effortless. And I mean, is it going to be effortless every day? No. Me and my husband get into it almost every other day about the stupidest things. But, when it's right, it's right. And, finding someone that you can feel safe with, especially, after everything you've been through. And you said you moved fast in this relationship, but it's like, you've seen everything that you don't want, and here's this that it's easy, it fits, you're happy. I mean, why not go all in for it, you know? And
Yeah.
y'all taken cruises, beaches, like, how's all that going now? Like, traveling and all that?
It's honestly, I love it.
Now
So,
is
yeah,
she
like
is
you mentioned.
she more of the traveler, and
Yeah,
she's just
yeah,
bringing
for
you along with
sure.
everything? Okay.
I'm the type of person. I used to be the type of person where, like, again, I was in the middle of my addiction, so, like, you're not taking me far away from my house because I need to make sure that I can get what I need at all times, and so, yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, literally, like, last Labor Day, we went out, and it was literally just a small trip, but she's all the time, like, we're all the time doing something, and she drives me crazy because 'cause I'm a very much, like, I can spend my Sunday on the couch with, like, a good movie, a good TV show, or a good book, and I'm fine. And she's the type of person who's like, "Let's go do this. Like, let's go on the lake, or let's go do this, or let's go do that. Let's go outside and, like, weed the yard and mow." And I'm no, like, I'm good. I will watch you. I will bring you water. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I went on my first cruise with her in January. Um, and we ported out of Miami and we went to the Bahamas and we detoured. We were supposed to go to Princess Cays, but we went somewhere else, Port something. I can't remember. But it was like over there in that area. And uh, I was nervous, like you hear cruise, especially because we went on Carnival. So that's the party cruise. But I was nervous, but she's not a drinker. She doesn't drink. She just she chooses not to, which not for me to understand, right? But um, I was nervous, and it was delayed. We drove 11 hours to port from there, and I remember the first day, like I got on this cruise ship, and that's the first thing everyone did. They went for food and they went for alcohol, and I'm like, I have drove for 11 hours, and we sat there because there was problems with the engine, so it was delayed. I'm like, "Can I check into the room? Like, can I rest or can I sit down?" And they're like, "Party, like, music is bumping, like, everyone's just." And I just had to, like, decide to, like, be in my own moment and enjoy the person that I was there with, and, I mean, in the moment, it felt like that waiting on the room, which was probably 2 hours or so, took forever. But, like, looking back, I'm like, like, I guess I know what to expect next time. But, I mean, it was literally it's funny because I just told her yesterday that I wish we could go back and redo that trip and just enjoy it again. Not
Mhm.
even redo it, but just relive it. And it was just one of those things where, I got a drink when we landed in the Bahamas, but it was non-alcoholic. I kept sorry, I guess I had to put that in there.
Put a
They had, like,
disclaimer.
those big pineapples, and it just looked so good, and I'm like, I just want the fruit. Like, I just want the juice and the fruit. And it was I mean, it was delicious. I'm mad that I paid that much for a drink, but, it's like, I've done worse, right? And, the pictures were great, and just the views, like, there were so many people that were up so late. There was people on our hall that, like, got into a huge argument because they were drunk and, like, losing all their money at the casino and, like, all this other stuff, and, like, literally, like, we ate good, we laughed good, we and just enjoyed the moment, enjoyed all the little things, and literally, she's itching to go again. She wants to go port from a different place and go and, like, so our itinerary different, like, she's ready to go again. So, yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of my life today, like, when I say it's easy, like, finding the right person to spend my life with has made it a lot easier. But, like, it's also easy because so when I first got sober, I thought I was gonna, like, need someone to share life with that knew what it meant to be an alcoholic. Like, I didn't think that I could share life with someone who didn't understand. And, like, I'm really thankful that that's not the case just because, like, it almost makes me feel like it's not that big of a deal that I choose not to drink. Like, you choose not to drink, but you didn't have to, like, go to jail and, like, do all these, like, extreme things to come to that conclusion. So, like, it makes it feel, like, more acceptable almost, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like in every relationship, there's like the quote unquote crazy one.
Yeah.
I feel like me. And then
Yeah.
we have our partner who's a little bit more down. And I think it's just a good balance, like I know how to get him out of his shell and go have fun. And he knows how to kind of bring me back down and settle me down. And I think that's great that you have someone that, doesn't need to have a drink to have fun. And I think that's like what you're talking about on the cruise. That's what I experienced. My first day, it was so overwhelming, tons of people everywhere. Mind you, though, this was my first gay cruise. Shout out to Vakaya, which Des, I totally recommend you going on. They have it's really nice. It's a really good cruise. They charter cruises and stuff. So, but anyways, uh, yeah, that first day I was so overwhelmed. I have ADHD, so I didn't take my medication that day. And just seeing everybody just going, zooming around, doing all that, I was like, yeah, drink sounds amazing right now. But it was after that, like once I got to the room, I was like, I could take like the breather. And then the rest of the trip was just amazing. Like I mean, there every once in a while, like I felt like I was like, ooh, wanted to drink. But overall, I was like enjoying the overall experience. And I
Yeah.
remember there was one time, it was a night because they have like a different party every night. And it was one night, like I went out onto the very top and I just stood there and I looked up and I was able to see all the stars. And like the more I looked up, the more stars came in. And I just got so like emotional about it because I was like, I would have missed this if I was drinking. Like I still would have been on the dance floor or maybe at a toilet. I don't know, depending on how much I drank. And it's just crazy to me how many trips I did used to take and be drunk and just miss out on so much. And like being able to go on this cruise after spending so much money on the cruise, you know, like my bank account, it's not built like that just to go every time, but like just to go and fully enjoy and be present during it and sharing it with someone. I think that was just, it was, yeah, it was definitely that spiritual, like it was very moving. And I just remember just standing there and I was like, wow, like this, like everything that I'm not everything, the one thing for myself that I gave up, alcohol, has allowed me to enjoy all of this.
Yeah. And, like, actually enjoy it too, not just, like, take pictures and look back on it, but, like, to remember what it was like to you know what I mean? To, like, lay in bed and feel the ocean move,
Yeah.
not just you moving because your head's spinning or, like you said, like, that was one of the, like, most amazing feelings is to be, like, out on, like, the dock or, you know, like, whatever, on the ship and be sitting there, literally, you don't see land, so you're, like, literally in the middle of, like, this huge ocean, and, like, there's stars like, literally, there's stars everywhere, and I remember that was between, like I'm a big sunset, sunrise person,
Mhm.
but, like, I also like looking at, like, the night sky, and, like, I mean, it was just literally, it just makes you realize how, like for one, for me, it was just, like, how fast life has, like, slipped away from me, so much time that I've just lost, like, because the only thing that mattered was, like, my addiction, and, like, so now, like, I sober up. Again, like you said, that's one thing, and it opened the doors like, it's still opening doors, and it's brought, like, a happiness that was literally so out of reach beforehand, and you realize that it's really the simple things that, like, hold the most significance.
Yeah, totally. Like it just puts a new perspective on things that we took for granted, and now it's just like I can't live without it, like I can't these little special moments just mean so much more. And you're talking about that. Like I remember my first cruise. I don't know if it was because of my first cruise, but I was taking all the pictures, videos, everything, just every chance I could. And I don't know if it was because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to remember this, so I need to take a picture of it. But this time, like, I still took pictures and stuff like that, but it wasn't a lot. Like, I was just caught up in the moment. And I think that's, giving up alcohol, and giving that gift to myself it's been a game changer for sure.
Yeah, I agree completely.
All right. Well, I think we could probably still talk for a while longer, but is there anything else you'd like to say or any advice or tips to anybody?
I think the most important thing that I could say to anyone who might be listening is, if you're contemplating sobriety, I think one of the most, and it's a little obnoxious, but it's really true. I heard someone tell me, like, just try it. If you don't like it in 30 days, you can get a refund. And it's just true. Like, you don't realize what you're missing out on. And so it's just, like, get connected, whether it's the community that we're talking about or another community. Like, if you're even thinking about it, it's worth giving a shot. And if maybe you have a few days sober or a few hours sober and you're feeling defeated, or you're feeling triggered, or you're feeling lost, or you're feeling uneasy, just reach out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can do this, and it's not always easy. I know we've kind of jumped on here and talked about a little bit of everything, but I think can speak for both of us when I say that, like, every trial, every uncomfortable moment, everything that's, not necessarily like ideal, but when we just buckle down and really, like, just do our best to get through it, like, it pays off, and we're able to grow through it. And, like, just, I hate to say the cliche, but just literally, like, just take it 1 minute at a time. Like, nothing happens overnight, but nothing changes if you don't change. And there's a life beyond your wildest dreams out here waiting for you. So yeah, hopefully, like, I'm a person, maybe a voice or video to you right now, but I'm also a person who cares, and I'm a person who would respond to you if you reached out to me and said you needed to talk. So, my Instagram is at XO_des97, I'm pretty sure. So find me on there. Send me a message if you needed someone to talk to you. Like I got you, and I would absolutely be honored to know that you've listened to this and you felt comfortable enough to come to me. Please, if you need someone, I'm happy to be that person.
With the mic drop at the end. That was awesome. Well, Des, thank you so much for being here. Again, I truly appreciate it. Definitely think sharing our stories is just if we can help that one person, I think that's great. So thank you again for being here. Thank you everybody else for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. If you connected with this episode, feel free to comment and leave us a review. You can find me on Instagram at OutandAboutAF. Take care of yourself, and we'll catch you on the next episode.